Commander Vex Thornblade had been having a perfectly boring Tuesday until Lieutenant Pip Starweaver burst into the command center like someone had set his uniform on fire. Sir, you need to see this right now." Pip practically vibrated with excitement, his 3 eyes wider than dinner plates. Vex didn't look up from his morning reports. After 30 years of military service, he'd learned that 90% of emergencies were actually just Pip discovering something he'd never seen before. Last week it was a comet. The week before, a particularly large asteroid. "Starweaver, if this is about another space rock, I'm demoting you to toilet scrubber." "No, sir. It's a ship. An unknown vessel just appeared on our deep space sensors." That got Vex's attention. Unknown ships didn't just appear in the Galactic Empire's core systems. Hell, nothing appeared in their core systems without 17 different permits and a background check going back 3 generations. Vex hauled his battle-scarred frame over to the main display, where Pip was frantically pointing at what looked like a tiny blip on the galaxy's most sophisticated sensor array. "That's it?" Vex squinted at the screen. "Looks like sensor noise to me." "That's what I thought too, sir, but watch this." Pip pulled up the movement tracking. The blip was moving. Fast. Faster than anything in the Empire's considerable fleet could manage. "That can't be right. Run a diagnostic on the sensors." "Already did, sir. 3 times. It's real, and it's moving at 0.97 light speed, and in normal space." Vex felt his stomach drop somewhere around his boots. 0.97 light speed in normal space was impossible. The Empire's best ships topped out at 0.4, and that was with engines the size of city blocks and enough exotic matter to buy a small planet. "Where's it headed?" Pip's face went pale, which was impressive considering his species was naturally purple. "Nexus Prime, sir. Dead center trajectory." ETA, he swallowed hard. 18 hours. The coffee mug in Vex's hand cracked. Nexus Prime wasn't just the capital of the Galactic Empire. It was home to 12 billion souls and the seat of power for a civilization that spanned half the galaxy. If someone was planning an attack, get me Admiral Voidcrusher. Now. Admiral Zara Voidcrusher was older than most civilizations and twice as mean. She'd been conquering star systems when Vex was still in diapers, and she had the scars to prove it. When her hologram materialized in the command center, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. "This better be good, Thornblade. I was in the middle of my weekly intimidation practice." "Admiral, we have an unknown vessel approaching Nexus Prime at impossible speeds. No identification, no response to standard hails." Zara's ancient eyes narrowed to slits. "Define impossible." 0.97 light speed in normal space, ma.am. For a moment, the only sound in the command center was the hum of life support systems. Then Zara laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. "Someone's finally done it. Someone's built a ship that can make our entire fleet look like flying garbage scows." She leaned forward, her scarred face filling the display. "Battle stations, Commander. If this is an invasion, we're about to find out just how outgunned we really are." Within minutes of Admiral Voidcrusher's order, Nexus Prime transformed from the galaxy's most boring bureaucratic center into a hive of barely controlled panic. Emergency sirens wailed across 17 different octaves to accommodate the various species in the Empire, and career politicians suddenly remembered they had urgent business in other star systems. Chief Science Officer Quinn Databurst materialized in the command center via emergency teleporter, his tentacles tangled in what appeared to be a half-eaten sandwich and several data tablets. "Commander, I came as soon as I got the alert. Is it true? Are the readings accurate? Because if they are, we need to completely rewrite our understanding of physics, and I haven't even finished breakfast yet." Vex pointed at the main display where the mysterious blip continued its relentless approach. "See for yourself, Databurst. What are we looking at?" Quinn's tentacles flew across his portable sensor array with the speed of a concert pianist on performance enhancers. His face cycled through at least 6 different shades of green before settling on a particularly alarming mint color. This is impossible. According to our sensors, that vessel has a mass displacement consistent with a light cruiser, but it's moving faster than our theoretical maximums for anything short of a dreadnought, with a black hole for an engine. English data burst. It's small, but it's moving like it's huge. That shouldn't be possible unless Quinn's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. Unless they've discovered something we haven't. Something revolutionary. Before Vex could respond, the command center doors exploded inward, and General Brick Hammerfall strode in like a walking siege engine. Despite his name suggesting all brawn and no brains, Brick had a tactical mind sharp enough to cut diamond. Thornblade. What's our threat assessment? Do we negotiate or do we start shooting? We don't know what we're dealing with yet, General. The vessel isn't responding to any communications. Brick studied the display with the calculating gaze of someone who'd spent 40 years turning military disasters into tactical victories. 18 hours to arrival. That gives us time to evacuate the civilian population and position our defensive fleets. Evacuate 12 billion people in 18 hours? Pip squeaked from his station. Not all of them, Brick said pragmatically. Just the important ones. Politicians first. He paused. Actually, maybe politicians last. We might get lucky. Admiral Voidcrusher's hologram flickered back to life. Status report. I've got 7 fleet commanders screaming for orders and half the Senate demanding to know why their vacation shuttles are being commandeered for evacuation duty. The vessel maintains course and speed, Vex reported. No response to any communication attempts. Science Division is baffled. I'm not baffled, Quinn protested. I'm scientifically concerned. There's a difference. Baffled suggests I have no theories, when in fact I have 17 different theories, each more terrifying than the last. Such as? Zara's voice could have frozen helium. Well, it could be an ancient superweapon from the predecessor civilization, or a interdimensional invasion force, or a new species with technology so advanced they view us like we view bacteria, or Quinn's tentacles tied themselves in knots, or it could be a time traveler from our own future coming back to prevent some catastrophic event that we're about to cause. The command center fell silent except for the increasingly frantic beeping of proximity alarms. Those are all terrible options, Pip observed helpfully. Exactly. Which is why I prefer to call myself scientifically concerned rather than baffled. General Hammerfall cracked his knuckles, a sound like breaking concrete. Well, whatever it is, we'll be ready for it. I've got the 3rd and 7th fleets moving into defensive positions around Nexus Prime. If this thing wants a fight, it'll get one. Admiral Voidcrusher nodded approvingly. Good. But remember, if their technology is that far ahead of ours, conventional tactics might not work. We need to be prepared for anything, including the possibility that we're completely outmatched. Vex asked. Zara's grin was sharp enough to cut glass. Especially that. Nothing like a good old-fashioned David and Goliath scenario to keep life interesting. Hour 6 of the crisis found the Empire's finest minds gathered in the emergency strategy room, which looked remarkably like a bunch of highly educated people having a collective nervous breakdown. We've tried everything. Chief Communications Officer Relay Voicebox threw his hands up in despair. His species communicated primarily through interpretive dance, which made his current state of agitation particularly dramatic. Standard frequencies, subspace channels, quantum entanglement messaging, even old-fashioned light signals. Nothing. Commander Thornblade rubbed his temples where a spectacular headache was building. What about the universal mathematical constants? Pi, the golden ratio prime number sequences? transmitted all of them in 17 different formats. If there's anyone aboard that vessel, they're either ignoring us or they don't care about math. Lieutenant Starweaver looked personally offended by this possibility. Who doesn't care about math? Math is beautiful. Math is universal. Math is... Apparently not working, Vex cut him off. Chief Science Officer Databurst had surrounded himself with so many holographic displays that he looked like he was trapped inside a three-dimensional graph. I've been analyzing their approach vector, and there's something odd about it. You mean besides the impossible speed? Well, yes. Their trajectory isn't optimal for an attack run. If I were planning to assault Nexus Prime, I'd approach from the shadow of the third moon to minimize detection time. Instead, they're coming in from the most visible angle possible. General Hammerfall looked up from his tactical planning. Maybe they want us to see them coming. Psychological warfare. Make us panic before they attack. It's working, Pip muttered. Or, Databurst continued, his tentacles writhing with excitement. Maybe they're not planning an attack at all. Maybe they're trying to make contact and just don't know how to respond to our signals. That's a lovely thought. Admiral Voidcrusher's hologram materialized with her usual dramatic flair, but I didn't survive 3 galactic wars by assuming hostile unknowns were just dropping by for tea and friendly conversation. The room's main display updated with new tactical information. The approaching vessel was now close enough for detailed scans, and the results were confusing. According to these readings, Databurst announced, the vessel appears to be constructed primarily of metal alloys, basic ceramics, some kind of primitive composite materials. Vex stared at the readout. Primitive? You mean they built a ship that fast out of basic materials? It gets weirder. The power signature is almost negligible compared to what should be required for that kind of speed. Either they've achieved perfect energy efficiency, or Databurst paused, his color shifting to a nervous yellow-green. Or what? Wet. Or their technology operates on principles we don't understand at all. The silence in the room was broken by the arrival of Senator Bluster Windbage, the Empire's chief diplomatic officer and professional panic spreader. His hover chair wobbled into the room like a deflated balloon. Commanders, I demand to know why my evacuation shuttle was requisitioned for military supplies. I am a senator. I have diplomatic immunity. You'll have diplomatic immunity from this crisis when you're safely off planet, Vex replied without looking away from the displays. This is outrageous. I've prepared 17 different first contact protocols. Surely we should attempt diplomatic solutions before resorting to military posturing. Admiral Voidcrusher's laugh could have stripped paint. By all means, Senator. Feel free to personally deliver your diplomatic greetings. I'm sure they'll be very interested in discussing trade agreements while they're not responding to any of our communications. Perhaps they're simply unfamiliar with our communication methods. Different species, different languages, different technological approaches. Then explain how they found us in the first place, General Hammerfall interjected. You don't accidentally navigate to the most heavily defended system in the galaxy. The display updated again. 12 hours to contact. I'm implementing Protocol 7, Vex announced. All defensive fleets to battle readiness. If they want to talk, they can do it from outside our weapons range. And if they don't want to talk? Pip asked. Vex looked at the mysterious blip on his screen, moving with impossible speed toward the heart of galactic civilization. Then we find out just how outclassed we really are. With 6 hours until the unknown vessel reached Nexus Prime, Admiral Voidcrusher made a command decision that would have made her younger self proud and her therapist rich. Launch the Interceptor Squadron. I want eyes on that thing before it gets within striking distance of the capital. The Rapid Response Squadron consisted of the Empire's fastest and most maneuverable ships, but piloted by beings with more bravery than sense and reflexes that bordered on precognitive. Squadron leader Ace Starburst had volunteered for the mission with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for people who had given up on living to old age. Control. This is Starburst Squadron approaching target coordinates. Visual contact in 30 seconds. In the command center, everyone held their breath. Even Quinn Databurst managed to untangle his tentacles long enough to pay attention. Starburst, what's your sensor reading on the vessel? That's weird, Control. My instruments are showing a ship approximately 60 meters in length, basic hull composition, minimal energy signature. But it's definitely moving at the speeds we detected. Commander Thornblade leaned forward. 60 meters? That's barely a shuttle. Confirmed, Control. It's small, it's moving impossibly fast, and Ace's voice took on a note of confusion that was deeply unsettling coming from someone usually unflappable. It looks kind of primitive? Define primitive, Squadron Leader. Well, it's got what appear to be actual windows, like transparent aluminum or something. And the hull design looks like someone took a basic atmospheric craft and just stuck some engines on it. Chief Science Officer Databurst began flailing his tentacles in what his species considered deep thought, but everyone else recognized as impending panic. That's impossible. You can't achieve those speeds with primitive construction. The structural stresses alone would tear the ship apart. Yeah, well, someone forgot to tell them that, because it's definitely holding together. General Hammerfall studied the incoming data feed. Starburst, can you see any weapons systems? Negative, General. In fact, I'm not seeing any systems I recognize. No defensive shields, no obvious weapon ports, no communication arrays. Just engines and what looks like a basic life support setup. Are you detecting life signs? Affirmative. 3 humanoid figures, low-level technology signatures. Control. This is either the most advanced disguise in galactic history, or we're looking at someone who achieved impossible physics with the equivalent of spare parts and determination. Admiral Voidcrusher's hologram materialized with an expression that could have curdled milk. Starburst, maintain distance and continue observation. Do not engage unless fired upon. Roger that, Admiral. Though I have to say, I don't think they even know we're here. No course corrections, no acknowledgement of our presence. They're just flying in a straight line like they're on autopilot. In the command center, Lieutenant Starweaver was practically bouncing in his chair. Maybe they're in some kind of suspended animation, or maybe their navigation system is so advanced it doesn't need course corrections. Or maybe, Commander Thornblade said slowly, they're just really, really lost. The thought hung in the air like a bad smell. The idea that the galaxy's most powerful empire had mobilized half its fleet to intercept 3 lost tourists was too embarrassing to contemplate. Starburst, any luck establishing communication with the vessel? Negative, Control. But, wait. I'm picking up some kind of signal. It's not directed at us, but Ace's voice took on a note of disbelief. It sounds like music? 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 Yeah, and someone talking. In what sounds like, well, it's not any language in our databases, but the syntax patterns suggest it might be from an underdeveloped species, possibly pre-spaceflight. The command center fell silent except for the sound of career military officers trying to process the impossible. Squadron Leader, Admiral Voidcrusher's voice was dangerously quiet, but are you telling me that we've been terrified for the past 12 hours by a ship full of primitives listening to music? Yes, I am. That appears to be the situation. Control, this is Starburst Squadron. The vessel has just stopped. Commander Thornblade nearly choked on his coffee. Stopped? As in completely? Affirmative. They were cruising along at 0.97 light speed, and then they just stopped, like someone hit the brakes. I've never seen anything decelerate that fast without turning into a cloud of superheated plasma. Chief Science Officer Databurst was now openly hyperventilating, which in his species involved rapid color changes that made him look like a malfunctioning traffic light. That's impossible. The inertial forces alone should have liquefied any organic crew. Unless they have some kind of inertial dampening technology that's centuries ahead of ours. Or, came a new voice over the communication channel, unless you guys have been getting yourselves worked up over nothing. The command center fell completely silent. The voice was speaking universal standard, but with an accent none of them had heard before. More importantly, it was coming from the mysterious vessel. Hello? Is anyone there? This is Captain Jake Rodriguez of the research vessel Lucky Break, and I think we might have taken a wrong turn somewhere. Admiral Voidcrusher's hologram flickered as if the system was struggling to process this development. This is Admiral Zara Voidcrusher of the Galactic Empire Navy. Identify yourself and state your intentions. Galactic Empire? Wow, that sounds official. Look, Admiral, I'm really sorry if we wandered into restricted space or something. We were just testing out this new drive system, and honestly, we're not entirely sure where we ended up. New drive system? Commander Thornblade found his voice. What kind of new drive system? Well, it's kind of embarrassing, actually. We were fleeing from what we thought was a black hole, and our engineer, Sparks McGillicuddy, had this crazy idea about reversing the polarity on our gravity compensators and routing the output through the waste disposal system. The command center occupants exchanged glances that ranged from bewildered to horrified. You routed your drive system through your waste disposal? Quinn Databurst's voice cracked. Yeah, I know how it sounds, but Sparks said something about utilizing gravitational differentials and municipal fluid dynamics. To be honest, most of what Sparks says goes over my head. I'm just the pilot. Lieutenant Starweaver was frantically checking his databases. Sir, I'm not finding any record of a species called humans in our catalogs. You're human? General Hammerfall's voice could have cut steel. Last time I checked. Why, is that a problem? We're pretty new to this whole space travel thing. Actually, this is our first time leaving our solar system, so if we've violated some kind of galactic traffic law, we're really sorry.
The silence that followed could have been measured in geological ages. Admiral Voidcrusher was the first to recover. Captain Rodriguez, are you telling me that you achieved faster than light travel by accident? Well, yeah, sort of. We were trying to escape what we thought was a gravitational anomaly, and Sparks started fiddling with the engines, and next thing we know, we're moving really, really fast. Faster than we've ever gone before. It was actually pretty cool, except for the part where we had no idea where we were going. And you have no idea where you are now.
Not a clue. Space all looks the same when you're moving that fast. We were hoping to find someone who could give us directions back to Earth. You wouldn't happen to know which way that is, would you? Commander Thornblade looked at his tactical display, where 17 different fleet formations were positioned for a battle against what turned out to be 3 lost tourists in a garbage-powered spaceship. Captain Rodriguez, he said carefully, I think we need to have a longer conversation. 3 hours later, the emergency session of the Galactic Empire's High Command resembled a support group for military officers suffering from acute professional embarrassment. Captain Jake Rodriguez had been invited aboard the command station, where he sat in the middle of the galaxy's finest strategic minds, completely oblivious to the existential crisis he'd caused. He was a remarkably ordinary-looking human with an extraordinary talent for accidentally revolutionizing galactic politics. So let me get this straight, Admiral Voidcrusher said, her ancient voice carefully controlled. Your species discovered faster than light travel by routing your engines through your sewage system. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds gross, Jake replied cheerfully. But Sparks says it's all about utilizing waste energy that would normally be lost to entropy. Something about converting biological byproducts into gravitational momentum. I don't really understand it, but it works great. Chief Science Officer Databurst had given up trying to process the implications and had settled into a state of resigned confusion. And this was your first interstellar voyage? Yep, pretty exciting, right? Though I have to say, space is a lot bigger than we expected. We've been flying for 3 days and hadn't seen anything interesting until we spotted all your ships. 3 days, Commander Thornblade repeated slowly. You crossed half the galaxy in 3 days. Is that good? We weren't really keeping track of distance. We were just trying to get away from that black hole thing. What black hole thing? General Hammerfall leaned forward with professional interest. Oh, there was this weird gravitational distortion near Jupiter. Our scientists thought it might be dangerous, so they sent us to investigate. Turns out it was probably just a solar flare or something, but by then Sparks had already souped up the engines, and we figured we might as well take them for a test drive. Lieutenant Starweaver was frantically taking notes, and your government authorized this mission. Jake laughed. Government? Oh no, we're not government. We're from the University of Applied Sciences and Questionable Engineering. This is basically a student project. The room fell silent except for the sound of career military officers contemplating early retirement. A student project, Admiral Voidcrusher repeated. You terrorized the most powerful military force in the galaxy as a student project. We terrorized someone? Oh gosh, I'm really sorry about that. We had no idea anyone was even out here. To be honest, we weren't entirely sure intelligent alien life existed until about an hour ago. Commander Thornblade rubbed his temples where his headache had evolved into a full-scale migraine. Captain Rodriguez, do you have any idea what you've accomplished? Well, we proved Sparks' theory about waste energy propulsion, and we discovered that space is really, really big, and that aliens exist and are surprisingly friendly. Oh, and that our navigation system needs work.
You've also demonstrated technology that makes our entire fleet obsolete, General Hammerfall pointed out with military precision.
Jake looked confused. Really? But your ships are so much bigger and fancier than ours. Ours is basically held together with duct tape and good intentions. Size isn't everything, Admiral Voidcrusher said dryly. Speed, however, is rather important in military applications. Oh, are you worried we're going to invade or something? Because I can promise you we're not the invading type. Most humans can barely organize a decent barbecue, let alone a galactic conquest. The irony was not lost on anyone present that the galaxy's most feared military commander was being reassured about humanity's peaceful intentions by someone who had accidentally achieved impossible physics while fleeing from a non-existent black hole. Captain, Commander Thornblade said carefully, I think your species and ours need to have some very serious discussions about your future in galactic society. Jake's face lit up with enthusiasm. Really? That sounds awesome. Wait until I tell Sparks and Doc. They're going to be so excited. Though we should probably figure out how to get home first. I promised my mom I'd be back by Sunday for dinner. And that, reflected Admiral Voidcrusher as she watched the most accidental first contact in galactic history unfold, was how the Galactic Empire learned that sometimes the most dangerous enemy was the one who didn't even know they were fighting.